We should move away from Liverpool just for a while then and look at the Premier League. And we've started speaking about City, and City obviously are going to be sticking their oar in for Wirtz. You already mentioned they're going to be sticking their oar in and have already done so with Wharton. But there are two other names that are more strongly linked with City at the moment for midfield. And of course, they do have Rodri coming back as well, as I see a conversation going on in the chats about like where exactly would Wharton fit in if Rodri is going to play for another couple of seasons. He's back completely fit. So who is it that we're seeing City being linked with? I know there's at least one AC Milan footballer. I thought there was one other big link too.
City, for our info, want two midfielders for the summer, two starters. And as well, it's important to say that I think everyone knows that De Bruyne is going, unless you've been living under a rock. Bernardo Silva wants out at the same time as well. Kovacic has seen better days. Gundogan's on his last legs practically as well. So Pep wants two starters. And I'm sure people have seen this one, but on the screen, Reinders, I think it's pronounced at AC Milan, they see him as an 8 that they like. But they're looking at, again, a bit like us, different options, but they're focusing on midfield, and which, until now, as we have to be honest, we didn't have Adam Wharton there. But Wharton, Wirtz, they're in the mix for those two players. Reinders as well. There probably is another that I've left off, but that's the big thing to say. I think there is another somewhere. Even, Javi Simmons, they'd inquired about as well. That isn't the name, though. I know what you mean. It's annoying me now. We're thinking.
Yeah, me too. It's more of a De Bruyne replacement.
It's Gibbs White.
Gibbs White.
That's the other one. Bloody annoying because we said about him for like 3 or 4 weeks in a row. To him as well. So, in simple terms, people go, they can't. Well, this is how transfers work, isn't it? If you want a midfielder, you don't just make an offer to one midfielder. They want two. It'll be about who they can get, isn't it? So I think Reinders seems one of the more likely ones because of AC Milan's financial stay and, being keen to come and probably get a massive wage bump. But I'm not going to lie. I said this to you and I'm liking it less as the weeks go on. I think City are going to be our biggest challengers next season, Trev. I think with Rodri back, and say it's two, say it is like a Reinders and a Gibbs White, or it could be a Wharton or a Wirtz, they take from us at the same time as well. City would have a real midfield with legs again then, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and it's just about whether they can keep Cyborg 3000 fit up front, because if that's the case, they're not going to do what they did this season, and their current form as the season closes is outrageously good. So, well, it's very good. So it's not going to fall off a cliff. I think you're right. I think they will be stronger challengers than Arsenal, and very worth monitoring where their moves go. I still have a little bit of mini hope that something happens and Pep heads for the hills this summer, but that seems less and less likely. We mentioned earlier on, just to confirm it, the Huijsen to Real thing did become more real during the week, didn't it?
Yeah. We always said, and actually, I think a lot of people got high on this because it had been linked for so long and the kid, but I think you made a fair point last week. Why are we all getting a giddy on a player we know wants to play for a different club and we're settling for us as his backup option? So this was known. It was publicly known. Alonso's there. He's pushed for this. This is an easy deal to do. He wants to go to Real Madrid. Real Madrid want a young centre-half to develop. Spanish, homegrown and all that. So, I've seen people I'm really gutted on this week. I'm really not. Huijsen is going to Real Madrid. And also, with the greatest of respect, the leap from Bournemouth to Real Madrid and playing under that pressure and in the champion, when the white flags can come out, will be interesting to see how he does as well. But I'm not as down on this move as other Liverpool fans are. It's just, we were all just waiting for Real to come in, and they did.
I'm going to be honest with you. There's something about Huijsen's head and haircut. He just looks like, I would say, an amalgam of most of the young lads that I have to sort of wrangle into shape every day around the 900 young lads that I work with. So, I mean, I'm not even vaguely worried about this, to be honest with you. And it's as simple as that. If a guy is going to be always with one eye on the next step, then honestly, how shall I put this in a really sort of fuck that guy, basically, would be what I'd say. It's not, if Liverpool isn't your destination club, I'm not really that interested. Whether that's self-defeating or not, honestly, who cares? There are lots of other bits going on. And, the Champions League thing is it's the only thing keeping the Premier League alive. I'm sure they're absolutely blessing themselves or whatever their chosen religion gesture is about the fact that it is such a competitive chase, because everything else has been done and dusted for weeks, and the Champions League thing is still alive. Villa are going to be in the mix, and Villa will want to hang on to their best players. We know they have a couple of high-profile loans at the moment. One of those is Marcus Rashford. What's the story there?
Yeah, obviously Villa are trying to get Champions League. They've got the PSR issues. They know, so it's going to be a really interesting one there. We've talked about Morgan Rogers and what could happen to him at the same time as well. But the big thing and it came out, as probably people could see on the screen there, about Rashford could make a move to one of the rivals, that he wants to join a Champions League side. And got this stood up that Marcus Rashford's team have basically been speaking to other teams that are going to be in the Champions League and saying, would you take him? And also, just to be clear, Rashford doesn't want to go back to United. United, expect to sell him and have his money on the books and book that as, 40 million under the PSR rules as well. So they're happy to pretty much sanction it as well. It's going to be interesting, because if Villa don't get Champions League, I don't know how many would be keen on Marcus Rashford, Trev. That's probably a discussion for another day, isn't it? Like pedigree, homegrown, but his age, concerns about off the field stuff. And that's not to be, derogatory, because I always respect Marcus Rashford for what he does with the school kids' meals, and all things like that. I think that's brilliant. But from a footballing point of view, you do wonder what will happen if Villa don't get Champions League.
I think for Rashford as well, it seems to be very much part of the mix that he'll want really good money. Yeah. And that's going to really whittle down the amount of clubs that would be interested in taking him on, because nobody wants to pay big wages. It's just a matter of how much you believe in him as a talent. Do you think the spell at Villa has rehabilitated him in terms of people's opinion and in terms of maybe his own form?
Yeah, I think another injury didn't help, but up until the injury, he was getting a few goals, wasn't he? He was looking lively, was doing quite well, it's fair to say, in Champions League games where Villa were doing well at the same time. So I do think that will have drawn quite a few eyes. There'll always just be that thing, as you know, from other clubs going, yeah, but what about his wages? Because he's supposed to be on like 350, a stupid contract United gave him before all this happened as well. So that will come into the mix. But yeah, I think he'll have admirers, but it's what they'll go to and how much wage he might have to sacrifice to get it done.
So a lot of clubs a lot of those Champions League hopefuls are looking at a situation, aren't they, Dave, where they're going to have to offload one or two of their very top players just when they need them most. Now, the only ones who don't have to do that are Newcastle, because of their financial sort of situation. Well, City too, obviously, but we don't consider City to be anything other than money bags. But there'll be, it's going to be an issue, isn't it? Is it fair to say that, though? Maybe I'm kind of defeating my own argument here, because I've just thought of Chelsea too. Chelsea really don't have to do the whole selling thing. Well, we know they're just going to do what they want to do, right? So I don't know. It's a complicated one.
It's a hard one, because Newcastle made a few sales to obviously help them, and you expect them to get the Champions League. So they probably won't have as much money to spend as they like because of that. But there's no suggestion right now they're like at the Villa level of like, we need a sale really here, or we're going to be in trouble type of thing. City, Yeah, City, they've obviously been fine. They spent big in January, but they're well under that. People forget with City, they've sold a lot of youth team players or a lot of second string, and you know, their books, whether you agree with them or not, balance a little bit there at the same time. Chelsea will sell their table tennis table kit back to themselves, won't they, for 500 million or something, or like flipping the doorstop on Sweeney Todd's office or something like that as well. So you kind of just ignore them a little bit. But Villa are definitely the ones I'm intrigued by as to who might have to see a mini exodus if they don't get it.
Yeah, and I know who your top target is because we've mentioned it before. One that we'd love to have at our club, but we'll get there again if it becomes a story. 2 Premier League clubs left to mention. Then we'll start with Newcastle, who we've already flagged up because of the sort of comfortable financial situation. But of course, they can be as comfortable as they like. But theoretically, they should be in line with PSR, and that may require sales. And of course, all of this is going to get much more rigid or much more flimsy. We see Chelsea with their incredibly inventive ways of flouting the law, which still seems to stay within the law. We know City are on the rack with some charges, and everyone's watching to see how seriously those will be taken. And so we wonder with Newcastle, are Newcastle going to keep doing what? Honestly, they seem to be doing quite well. I mean, they've bought well. They haven't gone completely mental. They've stayed roughly within the thing whilst flexing their financial muscle. They've hung on to Eddie Howe, who, credit where it's due, has done a good job, rather than going for a big name appointment immediately. Although I think he would be dumped the second it fell off the cliff for them. But Newcastle are looking to do some bits, and we still are dreaming of Alexander Isak, primarily because theoretically they're going to have to stick by the rules. What's going on at Newcastle at the moment?
Yeah, there's names keep coming up for departures. I mean, we've talked before about Isak and obviously the difficulties of that. They don't need to revisit that, but we mentioned Anthony Gordon before, that he was looked at by us again, and Arsenal were in the mix as well. That even now, Harvey Barnes is being mentioned as a target for other clubs because of his age. He's had a good end to the season, but he could be another one, to help raise a bit of money. But the one thing we've known, and we said before, Newcastle are after another attacking option. We mentioned Mbuemo before, who they've had a really good look at. They had a look at Kuna, although that seems destined for United, doesn't he? So that one's done. And the latest name is, well, a club that could just be being shellacked completely at the moment by Leverkusen's Victor Boniface there, who's not had the best of campaigns. It's suggestions he's fallen out with Xabi Alonso a bit, but Newcastle are having a serious look at him. So they are an interesting one because you expect them to get Champions League. You never know, but you look at the table now, the games that are left, and people will say, well, they've got Arsenal at the weekend away. I get that, but a win should do it for them out the last 2 games. You expect it to, happen with the last game being at home. So Newcastle will bring, if they get Champions League, another attacker in. Boniface is the latest name, but we will have to see if it is him or someone else.
It's a really interesting point you mentioned there. So, Leverkusen are looking at losing their manager. Their very, very biggest world star. They're used, like every other club in that league, to being poached by Bayern if anyone good comes up, and they've lost big name stars in the past. This could be really, really, really damaging for them this summer. We'll have to keep an eye on that, because they could embrace it and just say, right, fire sale time, and we'll just start again because we've had our joy. And, there's ways of looking at it. Last one then in the Premier League to talk about today is Brighton, because there are a couple of things going on. They're casting their eyes as far as South America. And one of the players that Liverpool was linked with is still being linked with an exit.
Yeah, João Pedro, that name keeps coming up. And various stories that people have seen the reports that Liverpool are still interested, Chelsea and others. I just think in the nicest way, and I'm not saying it, I think he's a talented player, he's a Brazilian international, but it's not been a stellar season for him, hasn't it? I think that was probably going to damage his options of a summer move. But Brighton are looking to move him on. That's important to say. Brighton are quite happy. They're looking for that bid to come in. So they do move João Pedro on. So you've got to bring that into the mix. And it's another one of these on the screen. David Ornstein mentioned it as well. Probably pronounced his name wrong, but Cubano, then that's a style of dancing maybe, but Botafogo, the left back, and people will be who? This is what Brighton do though, isn't it, Trev? They buy random names from South America that people are like, let's be honest, who'd ever heard of Estupinian before he came? And now he's like, he's one of the good right backs or left backs, in the Premier League, isn't it? It's what Brighton do. They are the club at going and buying these players, developing them and selling them on. And where this player isn't maybe, say, a belabor level of well-known, it is one to keep an eye on. And the final one I'll give you, just because we always like to give something a little bit different, Fulham have renewed 3 players in Harry Wilson, Adama Traore and Raul Jimenez. They've acted the 1-year extensions on there. West Ham have let Creswell go. But Ryan Reynolds, Wrexham, one of the players that hasn't renewed yet at Fulham is probably going to go is Tom Kearney, who's been a lot on Monday Night Football with Carragher and others this way. Wrexham in the Championship under Ryan Reynolds and that Rob McElhenney, you couldn't think of the guy. That's the other one, the celebrity, big, are offering players 50 grand a week to play in the Championship. That is going to be part of their model. That they're not looking to do any particular big spend. It's come and be part of this project, come and get a bit of money, a bit of retirement pension, etc., and be part of the glamour of associating with us as well. So, yeah, just watch out for a few others being offered big wages on a free by Wrexham.
That's a lovely. I love the way you snuck that one in and didn't tell me about it. That's a great story. Love that. Absolutely love that. And just before we go to the last section of the show, for the record as well, I see some people talking about Liverpool and strikers. And yeah, I mean, we just go from show to show with the stories that are around. Everyone's aware we're going to have to get a striker. That's just a given. The Wirtz thing, the Wharton thing. It's new news. So that's why we're dealing with it today.